What's up, guys? My name is Irvin Angulo, and I am the host of Money and Mindset Podcast. Today, we have Nate Argon on the show. I didn't only invite him because he is, awesome at what he does when it comes to business, but he is probably one of the best fathers I've ever met. He is an entrepreneur. This dude leads people with generosity so well, and I'm just super glad to have you on. Nate, how you doing?
Good to be here, and quite the setup, and I'm just excited to share with you and share to your audience and see what we can dig out and I don't know. I'm new to the podcast world, so yeah. I'm hoping you have some good questions. I have some good answers.
I'm brand new, so I hope that you just have long answers.
Okay, well, good. Yeah, it was quite the intro, so thank you for that. But I appreciate it, and I see guys like you, and it actually encourages me just to see these young guys, these up and comers, what they're doing, and I just love your vision and what just the work ethic that you have and what you're doing. So I'm happy to be here and do whatever I can to help you along the way.
Man, yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. It's actually you young guys that inspire us. You're still young. You're still young. How old are you?
It'll be, I'll just say 46.
Yeah. 46? Yeah. Were you about to lie?
I was going to say I'm going to be 47. But I'm a 46.
46 years old. And at 46, how many businesses do you currently own? What is it that you do?
Well, I struggle with that a lot. There's people ask me all the time what I do. And my primary business is we build outdoor storage buildings, little storage sheds, garages, shops, greenhouses. There's the gazebos, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. I started doing that pretty much right out of high school. And was just fortunate enough to be under good leadership there. I have to give all the credit to the owners of the company. When I came in there, it was somebody who I wanted to be like. He was such a mentor to me, him and his wife. But that's the primary business that I do. It's morphed into a lot of other things from there. I always wanted the opportunity to own that business. I didn't know how I would do it, as a young kid. But I saw my grandfather be pretty successful with real estate. So I thought, maybe I can, along the way, just start doing some real estate stuff, picking up some income properties, and just see what happens. Because if I was going to buy the company is Stor-Mor Systems, Stor-Mor Sheds is what we go by. But if I was going to be able to buy that company, I wanted to make sure I was in a position to buy it. Yeah. And so I was just hoping that it would all play out that way. So I started doing real estate pretty early on. I bought my first home at 19 years old.
Dang.
And then, it took probably another 4 years before we actually bought the second rental home. But from there, it just started going. And then, I was fortunate enough because the real estate was kind of going to be the fallback plan.
Yeah.
Like if I wasn't able to buy out the storage business, then I would fall back to the real estate. And it just so happened that it was the real estate that actually enabled me to buy my business. I had, these different properties that I think I sold one to free up cash to actually be able to purchase the company. But then I was able to keep all my other real estate and then kind of just continue building that real estate portfolio and the business. And then from that business, because that was in 2008 when I bought the business.
It's not even that long ago.
Not that long ago.
Wow.
Nope. But from 2008, and if anyone remembers 2008, it wasn't exactly the best time to be buying anything, real estate or a business. And
that's the start of the crash, right?
That was the very beginning, yeah. And I closed. I'll never forget it. It was February 29th of 2008.
Yeah. So
leap year. So there's no anniversary every year. It's like every 4 years it rolls around. But I remember it was like going into work the next day, and it just seemed like for the next 2 years, it just seemed like everything was negative in the news. Everything was about the housing crash and just the horrible predicament that seemed like everybody was in. And I was not alone. I was right there. So
how did you manage to, I just had Goose Susi on the podcast, and he did the same thing. He bought a business, and I always thought that entrepreneurship was starting something, then running it. That's what I do, and that's what I intend to do. I've never even thought about buying a business. How did that come to you? Like the idea of just buying it instead of just starting it?
That's a good question. I tell people a lot of times, especially younger kids, that they don't know what they're doing or what they want to do. And my dad, when I had graduated high school, all my friends were going to college and had a lot of really smart friends. And I felt like I was the
Did you go to school?
I didn't go to college.
Okay.
Nope, didn't go to college. And my dad, told my dad, I said, Dad, what do I do? He said, he goes, do something that's going to make you excited and happy and bring fulfillment, whatever that is, whatever that looks like to you. And I remember after he told me that, I was working at Albertsons at the time. And I didn't like the job. I was working, throwing freight, night crew, and that kind of stuff. I remember I quit my job because I was like, I got to find something that makes me happy, that I'm excited to go to. And I ended up volunteering for like 2 months.
A store?
No, I did a volunteer job with, actually it was with the Republican Party of Idaho.
That's awesome.
I traveled around with a bunch of candidates trying to get them elected in
That's
Idaho.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a good time. It didn't pay anything, but it exposed me to a lot of stuff, and I had a great time doing it. And that, that was only for a couple months, and when that ended, I knew I had to get a job. And so I remembered my dad had a storage building built when I was like 14. Yeah. And I thought, you know what? I loved watching those guys do that. I thought it was so cool. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to see if they're hiring. Yeah. And that's what I did. But going back to your point, I always knew that I was going to own my own business. My dad owned his own business. Growing up, I was exposed to a lot of different businesses. I mean, we had, I'm not kidding you, I sold birds. I sold oranges. We sold stamps. We had a Christian bookstore. We, did painting jobs, wallpapering. I mean, we were exposed to a lot of stuff as a kid. I'm the second of 11 kids in my family, so we had to make ends meet one way or another. Yeah. And so I got to be exposed to a lot of stuff. So I always knew I was going to be have my own business of some sort. Yeah. But you don't have to go as an entrepreneur. You don't have to go reinvent the wheel or go try to do something new. I think a lot of times if you just find a industry or something that you really like, if you get in there and go work your butt off, I think there's opportunity for you to buy out an existing business, or and I could see that. And for the first time, my boss, he treated me not like just like a number or some random employee. I felt like he really genuinely cared about my success and what I was doing, and so that just helped me be even more motivated to go do good work and want to own that company. So.
That's legit. Yeah. I don't know if this is something you can share, but what did you buy the business for, and what's it valued at now over the course of 15 years, 2008 till now?
Yeah. That's, how many years is that? Is that what that is? 15 years now? Yeah. Business valuations is really, it's really tricky. You never really know what the business valuation should or be or what it is. But back at the time when I purchased the company in 2008, I bought it for $1.5 million. And we had...
That's crazy. 2008.
2008, yeah. And we probably had 20 some employees at the time. And, I'd have to go back and see what the revenue was, but it was probably maybe 2.5 to 3 million maybe a year. That's what we were doing. But today, we have over 50 employees, and we're right around the 10 million revenue
mark awesome.
In that what we do.
That's awesome.
So valuating it, I don't know what valuation or how you go about doing that, but whatever someone else is willing to pay, that's what it's worth.
So something that I always thought was really cool about you is like you have all these credentials when it comes to business, but I didn't even know you for business. When I first had heard about you, I knew your kids, and I was like, who's their dad? Because you have great kids. Yeah. I was like, who raised these dudes?
Their mom.
Yeah. There you go. I was like, who did it? Yeah. And then I remember I was introduced to you just like through passing, and we hadn't even really talked, but I remember seeing you and meeting you, and then just watched you from a distance on how you lived your life. For me, I'm someone that's powered by generosity. like the reason why I want to do things is because of generosity. That's my gas, that's my diesel, that's what I put in my tank. And I get to watch you from afar, a person who, for you guys that don't know, he opens up his doors to his house every Monday, hosts hundreds of high school students to come in and basically mentors them, pastors them on how to live life. And that to me is something that's like unheard of. I've never heard of a person doing it. How do you, at the capacity you're at when it comes to business, still manage to make time for others?
That's a good question. First of all, I mean, we do that it's every other week, so it's not every week, so it's not that great.
Every other week, a lot of people.
It's every other week, but my wife and I have always been passionate about just giving whatever we have to help support the local church and the community. And even when we first got married, we got married pretty young. I turned 20 on our honeymoon, but we were the only married couple that we had. All our friends were single at that time, so we didn't really have anything going on. But we had purchased our first home. It was a little house, and I just remember it was like this feeling. We were so grateful for that little house that we had, and we started in that little house just a young adult group, because there wasn't a whole lot of community with a young adult group, that age group, at that time, and that was like 1996. So we started a little young adult group at our house, just opened up the house, and it just grew and grew. I mean, we were busting at the seams, and it was like everything that we had, we just had this little bit, and it was like you give what you have, and God has just always blessed it. And so we've seen that, and we've, there was a season of time where you couldn't open your house up all the time, and when we were having the kids, and the kids were little, all the other stuff was going on. We still opened up our house, but it wasn't until we really were able to. I think back in 2015 is when we moved, and we bought a bigger home. And that was something we knew right away. Yeah. I mean, we was like, look at this space, what we can do. Yeah. We can have, high school kids over. And usually it was always about, it's kind of almost selfish reasons, really, because you got your kids, you want your kids in a healthy, dynamic area. And it's like, well, what can we do for our kids? And it's like, well, let's start something with our kids' age group, and bring their kids, have our house be the place where they want to come and hang out and everything else. And that's just grown, and it just keeps passing down as our kids, they get older, some move out, and they get married and move away, whatever. But it still happens because you still have kids in the house. So we still have kids in high school, and so it's a fun thing. We love doing it, and you can just see these kids are just hungry for community and hungry for more, and we just like to be the more, I guess. Yeah. And have a place for them to go. That's
awesome. No, I think that just speaks to your leadership, to one, touch a business, bought it for 1.5, then now it does 10, start a young adult group, and now look at where, our church is when it comes to young adults, passionate about it. CYA, Capital Young Adults. If you've never been and you're between 18 and 30, I highly encourage you to show up. Now, high school hangouts, weddings, you do so much that I think that maybe even you forget about how much you actually do. What continues to drive you to like do these things? Because being at where you're at, I think that a lot of people can have cold feet. I've already done it. What else is there to do? What is your driving factor to move forward in business, in generosity, in opening your doors? Like, why keep doing it?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because you do get to a point, I think a lot of people can get there, where you can get comfortable at any place in life where things just become routine and easy, and it's really not a good place to be. You have to. There's some reasons why. It's like, why do I keep doing what I do? Because we only talked about one business, but it's morphed into a lot of other businesses, and it's like, why do I do what I do? And for me, it has been just an awesome journey to see, not only does it impact my life, but how many other people that your decisions, my decisions, have been able to influence in business and community. You know, another business I got into was we have a woman's hair salon, and you know, I solely remember getting into that business thinking I wanted to own more commercial real estate, and my younger sister, she was very passionate about doing hair and everything hair, and so I thought, you know what, I should buy a building, convert it to a salon, and partner up with her and run a business out of that. And so for me, it was something that it was right up my alley anyway, with real estate and running a business anyway. But for her, I felt like she had this dream of always having her own salon, and I was the missing ingredient for her. Yeah. And so I came along with her, partnered with her. We built the salon, and we turned it. It's a really cool space, but I only got into it for the business aspect. Yeah. But when I look at what we've created and what has been built, what I didn't really understand what we were getting into was the relationship aspect and everything that went along with this whole new venture. And that's been amazing. Yeah. And you just look at all these people that you have really you have just new relationships with, and you're able to speak into people's lives or do things, and just more opportunity comes. And so really, you know, to answer the question, it's not about, you know, it's like, yeah, you've done that or you've done this or whatever, but there's so many more people that you get to touch and get to influence and get to come alongside with and partner with. And so, and for me too, you look at, you know, I'm doing this too for, it's something that it's kind of in you also, like to stop doing things. It just doesn't feel right. You know, you're just like, well, what you gotta keep going. Yeah. And so I when people say retire or whatever, I don't know how that happens, because there's always something to do. Yeah. So, but, and your kids too, you're doing it a lot too. So your kids still see you, you know, pushing on and pressing in and continuing to, you know, advance. Yeah. On the last podcast, Goose said, poor people chase money, rich people chase things, wealthy people chase purpose. At your level, what do you feel your purpose is? Because I just heard you say, not only are you allowed to like pour into your own dreams, but now you get to also pour into your sister's dreams and watch them like come to fruition. Yeah. What is that purpose look like to you at this point? I think that purpose is exactly that. It's being able to go to the younger generation, or to people like yourself, some younger guys, some people who are coming up who you know, have great work ethic, have just, you know, a passion for business and a passion for learning and a passion for you know, even for your passion. I mean, your whole thing for business is so you can be a blessing to other people. But that's what it's all about. You know, if you just go and you're successful and you haven't helped anyone else along the way, I would be like, well, what are you doing? Yeah. Because there's more. I mean, that's really what makes me excited, is when you get to do something for someone and see their life. Yeah. You know, you get to change the trajectory of someone's life. Absolutely. Because of something that is, in your mind, relatively small that you were able to go do. Yeah. And to them, it's just this crazy, you know, huge thing. Yeah. And so being able to do that and come alongside with different people and mentor them and talk to them and encourage them. And so I feel like, I mean, that's what we do a lot. I mean, my wife and I, we spend a lot of time with people. Yeah. Coffee dates, dinner dates, you know, just having people over, just pouring into people, just mainly just encouraging them and letting them know, you know, that a lot of people, and I tell people this all the time, a lot of people see us now and they go, oh, we want to be like Nate and Sonny, or we want to have that, or we want it to look like that. Well, they see the now, but they don't know the in-between story of everything that you went through. And there's a lot of stuff that is in that story. There's a lot of things that we went through. There's a lot of things. It wasn't always, you know, perfect. It wasn't always easy. Right. In fact, it was hardly ever easy. There was always something that felt like we were fighting for. But my wife has been, you know, my rock in everything. And the one thing, I even told her this last night, I said, the one thing about our marriage, she's kind of she's not really into the business side of things.
Yeah.
And so
she's a dreamer though.
She is a dreamer, and she's a visionary. And she loves people and everything, just everything about just ministering to people and just she'd give you whatever she had to people. Yeah. But so she always let me kind of pursue the business stuff. Yeah. I mean, there were times I'd come home and we'd be talking after dinner about, well, how was your day? Well, I did this. And it was like, we're under contract. We bought a house today. She'd be like, and she was never like, you did what? Or whatever. She just kind of realized that's just who I was, and that's the business. And what happened early on, I remember there was a time where I just realized that she trusted me with everything. Wow. I mean, she just trusted me. Yeah. And so it was like, okay, your wife just gave you that much trust. Yeah. And I trust her equally with raising the kids and the house and just maintaining everything. And she's just been awesome. She started homeschooling the kids, and she started another co-op homeschool group that's just a huge group in the Treasure Valley. Yeah. So she's very gifted in what she does, but that trust, it went both ways. She trusted me on the business side. I trusted her. I never had to worry about what was happening at the house or anything. And so that relationship just worked really good.
Yeah. I think for me, so I'm married to my middle school sweetheart, and I can totally relate. Like, I know we haven't been married for 20 years. They're always the last ones to be dancing on the dance floor. I know. How many years you been married?
Oh, gosh. 27.
27 years. Yeah. I'm nowhere even near that. I'm 2.5 in, 2 years, 7 months in. And I can totally relate. My wife is my biggest encourager. I'm the dreamer, and I'm also like the action taker. Like, I'm just always like, okay, I thought about this. I'm going for it. And my wife's kind of more of she doesn't bring me down back to earth, but she almost like just comforts me. Like, okay, are you sure that's what you want to do?
Yeah.
It is? Okay, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. She has never told me no, like ever. And I think that is so important when it comes to business. You need to have a partner that is willing to correct you, one, but also push you forward, even when nobody else will. And for anybody that's not married or is thinking about marriage, one, it's a beautiful thing. And two, if you're already with somebody and you feel they're not pushing you forward, don't try to change them. Just prove them right. Prove them wrong in a good way. Like, when you say something, mean it. Start there. When you say you're going to do something, accomplish it, finish it. That way, when you want to dream and have these big visions, your partner automatically believes that you can do it. Am I right or wrong?
You're right. Even like what you just said there, one thing that I've looked back on when I have a dream or when I have an idea for business or whatever, I think a lot of people, like, they just hold that dream to themselves, and it becomes like Nate's dream or Irvin's dream or whatever it is. But when you're married, man, if you can share those dreams and it becomes your dream together, it's so cool when you can actually have a dream, it becomes your dream to share. And then when it comes to fruition, there's just excitement about it. Yeah. And the other thing too is like the dream of, like, I always knew I wanted to do real estate stuff. And I can remember as a young guy getting super frustrated because I was not able to get anything and not able to find anything, and every deal we just struck out on. And I remember going, man, God, I don't think this is what you have for me. And it was until I literally like gave up and said, all right, God, whatever you want, it's in your hands. I'm done pushing. Yeah. I remember that. In fact, we were working with a realtor though in the first deal, and then I just said, we're just putting things on hold. And it was like you just gave the reins over to God, And literally, I remember the first deal I did. I went down a route. I took a different route home one day. Yeah. Just, I don't know why. Just took that route home, and there's this older gentleman out in the front yard, and he's pounding a for sale by owners sign right in the front yard, and I just went, oh my gosh! It's right and here. I pulled over, and that was our first house we ever bought. Our first rental house we ever bought. Crazy. Yeah, and it was awesome though, because you had this dream, and I shared it with her. We had it together, and we went through the frustrating part of not being able to get it, and then when you do get it, it just feels like a great win that you can both, celebrate together, and then keep dreaming on.
That's awesome. Yeah, when I bought this house, it felt nearly impossible. I am the first in my family, as far as the kids go, that have bought a house.
Wow.
Eileen is the first in her family that has bought a house when it comes to her siblings and even some parents. And for us, buying a house was always like this far out thing. When we're 40, when we're 30, you know, like it was just out there. But when this came to fruition, we were living in a rental in Boise, and we essentially got kicked out. It was a weird deal. It wasn't like a, hey, get out of here, but it was like, hey, you guys got to move out. This is your notice. Okay, cool. We literally moved in a day, packed everything in a U-Haul, and we were, I guess you could say, homeless for 3 weeks. I texted my aunt, who lives here in Nampa. I said, hey, can we crash at your house? Open hands, open arms. Of course you can. You can stay here as long as you want. Awesome. And I told my wife, babe, we're going to buy a house by August 31st. That's what I told her. We're going to buy a house. I promise. We closed on this house in 16 days, and we closed on August 29th.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Like, this feels so good. And we grabbed everything we just had put in a U-Haul into a storage facility, and then grabbed everything from the storage facility, moved it here, and we're already thinking about the next thing.
Yeah.
You know, like, yes, we love this house, but same thing. One day we want to host young kids, and one day we want to host young adults, and we love hosting, having people over, making sure they're taken care of. This little house isn't going to do it, but it's going to be a great rental someday.
Yeah, and it can provide the opportunity for the next place. So
exactly.
It's a stepping stone.
It's a perfect house with a little portfolio. You know, it's not the biggest thing, but we're near downtown, next to all the coffee shops, and we saw the big picture, and it was all because of Eileen, really. Like, her believing in me and saying, like, you have all the power to do whatever you want with our finances, and I trust you. Yeah. And that's an awesome feeling to have from your significant other.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's funny too, because a lot of things when I get some ideas, big ideas, or just ideas or whatever, a lot of times for me, like, I have to like believe myself. Sometimes I'm like, no, like that, I'm not going to do that, or you can't do that.
Give me an example of one.
Well, even like you could go back to when we did the salon. I mean, everybody was like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? And I remember we tried, we were under contract on 2 other buildings, and they I backed out of both of them because it just wasn't and kind of going into it, I kind of felt like, I don't know if this is the perfect thing, but I'm just going to start taking these steps and doing it. And when you speak things and when you actually take action to do things, it just makes you more confident.
100%.
And so if you can speak it, like if you speak it, you start believing yourself. Yeah. And so not to get all crazy on like, name it and claim it and all this kind of stuff, but if you start speaking the vision in your head or the dream in there, you will birth something. I mean, it comes alive in you, and it just makes you more passionate to go out there and chase it and do it. Yeah. And so that I really do believe it. If there is something in you, I mean, if you have a dream in your head and you never share it or you never speak it, it's probably just gonna, it's just gonna be a dead dream. It's gonna be dead in your head eventually. Right. It's not gonna get out, and it's not gonna come to fruition. So I'm a big believer when it's there, or write it down, or start. I do all that stuff. I'll write it down. I'll speak it. I'll share it, and it just builds your confidence to keep pushing on.
Yeah, yeah. No, for me with big ideas, I'll tell everybody because I feel it holds me accountable. Yeah, and then I have to do it. Yeah. When I started this, I told everybody, like, on January 14th, 15th, I'm going to make $1 million this year. And if I don't, I don't. But guess what? I'm going to try, and I'm going to document it, and I'm okay with everyone watching. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and if you don't make $1 million this year, who cares?
Next year I'll make 10.
You still tried. You're still pursuing that goal of making $1 million. So it's not like it's nobody can look at that and go, oh, you failed, you made 500,000, maybe failure or whatever. It's like, no, you're not a failure. Have something to go shoot for, and just keep going after it.
Yeah. How do you prioritize your life? So a big thing that I tell my audience is that I put my faith above everything. Then comes my wife. Then comes my family, my friends, and then finances. I'm sure that's probably not too far off of you, but how do you manage all that? And how do you structure yours?
I mean, it's pretty much, that's not far off at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I would agree wholly with what you said there. But the one thing about being in your own business, being an entrepreneur, a lot of people look at it and they see the luxurious side of it, or they see the guy that's got a free schedule,
right.
or they're like, man,
which isn't really free.
Would love to have that, yeah. Right? But there is nobody. There's nobody that really, except maybe your wife, but there's nobody that's really going to. When you go out and you do, let's say you go out and you do a deal or whatever, when you're an employee and you're working for someone, man, you're going to get raises, you're going to get bonuses, you're going to get accolades, or you should be, with stuff that you do, or if you perform at a high level.
Right.
But when you're an entrepreneur or whatever, nobody ever pats you on the back and says, "Oh, that was a heck of a close. That was a heck of a job." You know what I mean? It's like you just go away from it like nobody said anything. It's just a deal, so there's nobody really giving you the accolades right there. And then there's also nobody, I found it incredibly lonely at the top. And I'm not trying to say I'm at the top.
No,
but when I first bought the business, the storage business, my whole 20s, I was very passionate in pursuing the ability to be in a position to buy that business. So everything that I did, whether it was a stock trade, whether it was a investment property, whether it was some side job or everything, the money went to be able to be in a position to buy that business. And so you were so focused on buying that business. And I remember the day we bought that business, I was excited. The day had finally arrived. This has been a dream of mine. It's been something I've pursued for years.
Yeah. And
the day's here. The time's now. And I remember going into there. We signed on the dotted line. We did all that stuff. And I remember walking out of there literally with probably the most empty feeling I've ever felt.
Wow.
And it's really hard to describe. And the only picture that I could give you is if you imagine a ladder, just straight up in the air.
Yeah.
And it felt like I climbed all the way to the top of that ladder. And I was on this ladder now. And I was like, oh, wow, I got way up here. I should have leaned this on something solid, I'm doing this balancing act. But it just felt very empty. It felt like the only way to go from there was down. That's how I felt. And so and when I was an employee and I had my old boss, the guy was just an incredible man. I mean, I would bounce everything off of him, from real estate stuff. Yeah. And there was never one time where I felt like felt like I was competing against him, or what, he always wanted me to succeed. Yeah. My success was his success. And I felt the same way. But he was always there to bounce stuff off of, and he would counsel me, give me guidance, correct me, all that kind of stuff. So when you are, your own boss, or you're an entrepreneur, and you've got to set your own schedule, you've got to manage everything, but you've got to be a pretty disciplined person to stay the course and be on that, because there's nobody telling you, no, don't do that. There's nobody telling you, great job, keep going in that direction. Right. You've got to have a pretty good compass for what it is you're doing. Yeah. And so in some ways, sometimes I'm doing things, I'm like, man, I wish there was someone there saying, no, don't do that. Or no, you don't want to do it, or whatever. But I do still have some good relationships with some guys who are pretty successful that I get to be fortunate enough to go in and bounce my crazy ideas off sometimes, and they sit and listen to me and play devil's advocate. So I'm really thankful for those relationships, and the boss, Greg was my old boss, and he's still. I just dropped in over his house, I think about a week ago, just to catch up and say hi, and just an incredible man, and his wife too, Judy. They're just incredible people. So
two things I want to acknowledge there is you took risk. In 2008, I'm sure everybody was telling you, prep for the recession. This thing's going to hit pretty hard. And what you did was opposite. You bought a $1.5 million business. That could have gone south real fast. That could have not gone so well, but you took the risk and now you reap the reward. How was that climbing the ladder? So that's number one. But then number two, climbing the ladder and then not getting that congratulations. You're doing it, you're doing great. Why is it that our culture is so against people doing better than they are? And not even in a rude way. I don't mean that in a negative way, but for some reason, it hurts a lot of people to watch others succeed further than they already have. Why is that? Is that kind of what you felt as well as you say going up the ladder and
well, I didn't necessarily feel like I succeeded. So I didn't feel like there was a lot of people around me going, "Oh wow, look at Nate, he's really succeeded." At that time, I didn't feel like that. I remember, and I'm not trying to talk, say anything negative about my mom or anything, but my mom was very conservative, and I remember she was, very against me going out and buying the business and taking on debt and doing that in that time. And of course I respect my mom and I value her opinion and everything else. But you do get to a point. It's like you have to know when to go and when to stop, when to pause. Yeah. And my mom, she only had my best interest in her heart. She didn't want me to fail. She didn't want me to be, maybe she just didn't want me to move back into the house. I don't know.
She just got you out.
Maybe I haven't thought about that angle. But no, I can remember my mom being really concerned about what I was doing. But I knew it was something in me that I'd worked all my, I was 30 at the time, and I started working at my job at a high school at 18. So I'd been working there, and I knew that was what I wanted to do. So you got to kind of listen to that inner voice of you're going to go out and do this. And every deal that I've ever done, even in real estate, you can look back and I'll tell people, I bought that place downtown over there. I paid $94,000 for that, or we bought that one for $135,000, or this one. You just go and you start talking, and people are like, that is so insane. That was such an easy decision. No, I'm telling you right now, those were hard decisions. Yeah. Nobody was doing that. Yeah. Nobody was doing it. And people would question you all the time. And I remember the first rental house that we bought, we saved up $10,000, which was really difficult to save up. Yeah. And this was in 2001. We had our first home, we bought it in 96. So it took us another 5 years to save $10,000 to buy a piece of another investment property, or a first one, I should say. So here's that house. The guy's pounding the sign in the yard to come by. It was it might have been 92.9, something like that. It was in the 90s.
This is in Boise.
It's in Meridian. And I remember looking at it, and I was like, "This is the one. We're doing it." And we went into escrow on it, and that was in August of 2001. And I don't know how old you are, but
I was 4 at the time.
September 11th, 2001 was right around the corner. Yeah. And the world literally came to a screeching halt. I mean, everything stopped. Yeah. And I can remember going, oh my gosh, I'm in contract on this house. Yeah. We're giving our $10,000. It's taken us 5 years to save. Yeah. We're going to go put this down on this house. Should I do this? Should I just walk away and lose my earnest money? You had all these thoughts going through your head. And, it was a very difficult decision to continue and buy that house and close in October of 2001. That was a big decision. And people look back at it now and they're like, well, how is that a hard decision? $92,000 or whatever it was. That seems like a no-brainer. Now it does.
It'll get you a trailer now.
But back then it was that there was so many people questioning us what we were doing. Wow. Because the house, number one, it wasn't going to cash flow. It was going to break even. After you put your money down, got the tenant, everything else, it was just going to cash. It was just they were going to pay the mortgage, basically, the tenant. And so you had all those questions of, well, what if they don't, what happens when they don't pay the rent? Right. Or what happens when you don't have a tenant? You can't get a tenant. There's all these fear. Everyone throws this fear, pour a bucket of fear on you.
That's what I'm saying. Why is that our culture?
I think part of it might not be that they intently do that to try to discourage you. I think there's some goodwill in that to keep you from ruining things also. But I think when people don't understand the way, because money's a tool, money is just a tool, and and people abuse money. People do all sorts of things with money, and when you don't have money, you're chasing money. When you have money, some people hold on to it too tight, and they can't let go, and they're not generous with it, or it's a weird thing. But when you can understand money, what it's for, and its purpose, and there's a purpose behind it, then I think it starts making a lot more sense. But I think a lot of people, and there are people that will see you doing better, and they could maybe be mad at their situation and be envious of yours because maybe they had the opportunity like you did, but you took the opportunity and you made something of it, and other people don't. Other people just continue on with what they're doing, what's comfortable and what's easy. Yeah. And that, even to this, when we bought that house in 2001 in October, and literally we had no money. We didn't make very much money, but we closed on our second rental property in March of 2002.
That's crazy.
And we had to put $20,000 down. Now, we didn't have no $20,000 to do that. Yeah. And the house that we bought, the zoning was weird. There was all sorts of things, but I knew I was supposed to buy that next house.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't have a cell phone back then, but I drove in and went into, personally walked into probably 8 different banks, and just went in there and wanted to speak to a mortgage lender. I did that, and everybody told me no. I mean, it was getting old pretty quick. Everyone was telling me no. Yeah. You had no money. You got 2 homes, you got mortgages on them, everything else. And I remember I went back to the first guy who gave me a loan in 1996, and I said, "Hey, I'm trying to get this other property. What can I do?" And that was the first time anyone ever told me there was a HELOC option. Yep. And they gave me a HELOC on my first home, which was for $20,000.
Can you describe what that is?
Yeah, HELOC, it's a home equity line of credit. So we had bought that home in 1996, and the year now is 2002. So there's time in there. You've paid down that loan a little bit, but the value has climbed. Yeah. So it's gone up. So you have equity in the house. So there was enough equity in the house where the bank would do a second loan and come in second position to the first loan and give me a line of credit for $20,000.
That's crazy.
Which was huge.
Yeah.
And so so that was number one. I figured out I got the down payment right there. So the house, and I had already found the house. Loved the house. I think it was in the 90,000 range as well. Loved the house. And it was 94.9. Wanted that house, so I had 20,000 to put down on it, but I needed the loan. Yeah. And so that's where I was getting struck out on. Everyone was telling me no, and I remember going to one last bank in Boise and talked to the loan officer there, and he said, I can't help you with this. Dang. But then he said, but. And then there was like that little bit of hope, right? That's the win. He said, but I used to work with this lady. Her name is Kathy Hartley. I'll never forget that name because I was like, I'm all ears at this point. And he says, Kathy Hartley, she's with Home Federal in Nampa now. He looks up her number. I don't know where he had her number, but gives me her number. He says, call Kathy. I think she might be able to help you out. And I was just like, wow, okay. This is further than I've gotten with anybody. Yeah. And so I thought, I'm calling her right away. So I got back to the office. I called Kathy. And then we set up an appointment for, next day or a couple days later or whatever. Yeah. And I went out there, talked to her. She said, well, I'm not sure what we can do, but I'm going to look into and see what I can do. And I left. I was feeling, I was feeling good. Yeah. So I left, and she called me back, and she said, we can get you approved for $70,000. Oh yeah. So I got the 20 and I got the 70.
You need a few more.
But we've got a gap, with closing fees and lending fee, all the fees and everything. I was like, oh man. And there were so many points to give up on, but I was like, okay, what can I do? And so I went back to the people who were selling the house, and went back, knocked on their door. And there was kind of a funny story too, because the first time I knocked on that door, I've never been to this house. I've never really seen this house. Yeah. But I knocked on the door, and this lady opens the door, and she says, "Oh my gosh, hi Nathan." And I was like, huh? Yeah. I was like, what? This lady knows me. Yeah. And she actually went to our wedding. She was friends. Her and her husband were friends with my in-laws. And I've never met, maybe I met her at some point in my life, but to me, I'd never met this lady.
Yeah.
And she was so welcoming, come on in, this and that. And so super nice couple. But anyway, so I go back to him and I said, listen, I've had a kind of a hard time trying to get this loan. I said, I've got the down payment. I've got the loan secured here. I go, but to meet the bank's needs, we are off. I mean, we're off by $4,900 on the price, and I got closing fees and everything else. And I said, the only way I can do this is if you would carry me a private note and carry me back. It might have been $6,000, $7,000. I don't know what it was. Carry me this note for a year or whatever I could. I was had arranged in my head. I thought about this a lot. What I was going to say to them, and they agreed to do it.
That's
so
awesome.
they lowered the price down to $90,000.
Yeah.
We closed the deal, and then I had a private note with them.
Yeah.
And then I just worked my tail off, hustling and doing whatever I could to pay them off in the time frame I told them I was going to pay them off, and got the house rented, and still have all those houses today.
That's crazy. So you buy your primary 96.
Yep.
You get your first rental 2001.
Yep.
Your second 2002.
Yep.
What does your real estate portfolio look like now?
Now
all
there's
these years later.
Now there's about 20 different homes, 20 different properties.
That's crazy.
But then just multiple businesses within that too. But the real estate thing I haven't done. I guess I did do a real estate deal last year. I'm like, I haven't done a real estate deal in a while. I did do one last year. It was a big one. I did one last year. But yeah, I haven't. Right now, people always that come to me and they say, what do you think about the real estate market? The rates are up, the prices seem to be up, everything else is up. And it almost feels like the same time like when I first started out doing stuff. It was like, it's if everybody can do it and everybody's doing it, it's you look now and everyone's kind of like paused. Sometimes I think that's a time where the light's turning green. It's like, okay, start looking, get your ducks in a row and see what opportunity comes up.
Yeah.
But
that's when people become rich, they say, is the recessions.
Yeah. And you can make, I look back, I kind of paused from real estate from 2006 to 2010.
Wow.
I think I didn't buy anything in those years. And then after 2010, I just started hitting it pretty hard. I was buying a lot of short sales, just different stuff that was.
Yeah, because people were. Yeah, it was a tough spot. Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's always going to be opportunity. But when I bought my first home, I remember my parents telling me when we got our rate, we had to do go through Idaho Housing and get like a first time buyer's rate. Yeah. I can't remember what we did.
FHA or something like that.
I don't remember all the details of it, but it was some program that they had for first time buyers. And I think my rate was 7% on
Which is what they're at now.
Yeah. But everybody was telling me, that's a really good rate, because, your parents would say, we paid, 10% in the 80s or, whatever they had to pay. But the rate at 7%, that felt like a really good thing to me. But you fast forward now, and what we saw over the last 5-6 years, you saw these rates incredibly low. Like historically, they just were super low at an all-time low. Yeah. So people kind of got used to those rates, and then when you saw the rates bump again, everybody freaked out. Yeah. So I don't know. It's probably safe to say those rates will probably be around where they're at now for a little bit, and people will adjust to it. But on the flip side of it, I was buying property at $100,000 or whatever at a 7% rate. Right. That's a different payment in itself. But people are making more money too than I was making. I think in 1996, I think I was making under $10 an hour.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So it's
crazy that $7.25 is still minimum wage.
Yeah, but nobody's paying
it. Nobody can get by.
I don't know who's getting by paying anybody $7.25. Yeah. But that is crazy that's technically what it is.
Yeah. So what's your advice for people who, like myself, I have my one primary. I want to buy more real estate, but we're kind of in this, 7% interest rate. Prices are a little bit high. What is your advice for people like me? Would you recommend, because I know me and a friend have reached out to you and said like, hey, we want to buy this house together. What does this look like? Would you recommend like people getting together, a couple young dudes getting together, renovating a house, selling it? Do you think long term's better right now? Do you think short term's better right now? What is your ideas on that?
I mean, I've always been a long-term guy when I'm doing something. Short term, if there's something short term and you can make enough money where it makes sense and it's just something to propel you to a long-term deal, then I like it. But a lot of, these short-term ones, if you're talking about like maybe like a flip or going into something and buying it and flipping it, there's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of risk in that with not a whole lot of reward on it. Because let's say you do make a chunk of money on there. Well, you've got all that money you got to pay in taxes on that, or you got to go reinvest it into something. Yeah. And so if you don't have anything to reinvest it into, you're going to pay half of it. Taxes. Well, half of it to your partner anyway, right? Yeah. If your partner's on it, and then you got half in taxes. So it doesn't seem like the reward is really that great when there's that much risk involved, because you're going to go take on the project. You got the interest rate set where it's at. You're going to put money into the project to renovate, and then you've got to get out of the project, exit it, seller's fees, all that kind of stuff just to get out of it. And so at the end of the day, it's like, is that worth it? Is that something that you really want to do? And then you have this partnership too. I think the better thing to do would probably be just to look at what you have. And obviously I don't know everything about this house that you've bought, but I always looked at my real estate early on. I always looked at those as stepping stones. Mm-hmm. What's this going to get me to the next one? And I think a lot of people want to go like from here to like, you can't skip the stuff, you can't skip those stepping stones. Go from here and look at like the next deal as your next rental that you're going to have. And so you turn this one into a rental or move into the next one. I would do that, because, if you turn this one into a rental and move it into another one, you're going to get, that's going to be your primary home. Yeah. And you're going to get a better interest rate doing that. You're not going to pay an investment rate.
And down payment.
Yeah. Yep. So, and that's the thing too, as long as when I used to have a rule where if you could put, X amount of money down on the property and it was going to cash flow, or then that was the rule I started going with early on. I would put whatever I had. Like the first deal I did was 10,000 down. Yeah. But if you can, I would say, and there's probably a lot of people who would say different things, but this is just me. I would say put 20% down and avoid PMI, because that PMI will drive your payment up. Yeah. And like if you have PMI on this house and you move out of it and do another house, you rent this house out or whatever, if that PMI wasn't there, you're going to be cash flowing really nice without the PMI. So if you can be really disciplined to save enough money to get to a 20% equity position and being able to put 20% down on a home, avoid the PMI, that's what I would do. I don't think I would do something before I had the 20%. I'd get the 20% and get that down and then go find the next investment property.
Man, that's crazy. I got another question for you. So you're 46, you said? Mm-hmm. Okay, so 46 years old. You have constantly evolved and moved in business. We live in a culture today where if you're not a millionaire by 25, if you're not making a certain dollar amount, if you're not, financially stable, you're basically a loser, is what people are kind of getting at. And that is a big reason too why I started this content creation, was because I wanted to show that money alone doesn't sustain. After 46 years of not chasing the dollar, but constantly trying to grow your worth as far as dollars goes, where are you today in making more money? Or are you pretty happy with what you've done? Like, when does that end?
I don't think it ends. Okay. I don't think you just go, I'm happy with what I made or whatever. And not to say I'm not happy. I mean, I'm at a place where I do feel like I'm happy. I feel like a lot of times early on in my life, I would go chase different deals that were going to make money or whatever. But I look at it a lot different now today. I look at, am I going to go, there's deals all the time. Yeah. Am I going to go chase that deal or go down that road and get that deal and acquire that? Yeah. And then what is that going to take of my time now? What does my life look like if I do go get that? Yeah. Does that take more time away from me? Do I have to let go of something else to go do that? And if I do, then I'm not going to go chase that deal. I'm looking for stuff that's not going to change the life that we have right now.
Yeah. So when you say we, you're referring to your family and yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that's super important. I think anytime, because I don't think there's anything wrong with working for someone. You see so many people like, not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur on doing it. So if you're going to go work for someone, I mean, they should be treating you well, and you should be treating them well. Yeah. And if I remember when I was working for my boss, I remember when something in me flipped, like, okay, this isn't a job, this is a career. And everybody, I felt like it was a pretty lowly career, like I was flying under the radar because we were building storage sheds and we were kind of, in the construction industry, it wasn't a glamorous job by any means.
Right.
And so I always felt like I was kind of flying under the radar with that, and people, the way they look at you or whatever. I mean, people look at Instagram today and they see all this, the cars and the flash and they want all this stuff. But I don't think there's anything wrong with working hard and working for something that you really like doing. But if you're going to go put the work in for somebody and you're not recognized for what you're doing, or you're not advancing, then there's a problem. And I remember when I went from this being my job to I'm going to make this a career and I'm going to give it 110%. And I'm like, if this doesn't give back to me in the way that it should, then I'm going to know. It's going to answer some questions for myself. And when I could see that it gave back to me and that I was advancing, I was like, okay, I'm advancing. This is something now I do think I want to own this thing and do it. And it leads just to more things. But I think a lot of people, even younger kids today, they want to be their own boss. They want to be an entrepreneur, but they never actually start working. And the work ethic, you've got, I think you have to have a job. You've got to go put in time. You'll learn so much from a good boss or a good job. And some people, I see them too, they chase the dollar amount. They'll go like, oh, well, I can go work at Walmart or whatever and greet people or whatever, 15 bucks an hour. And I'm not putting anyone down working at Walmart, but I would say, what skill are you going to have after working at Walmart for a year than if you went and you took a job making $12 an hour and you actually learned a skill when you're doing it? Much That's better. Good. Go find something that you're going to learn. You're going to basically get paid to learn. Whether it's a trade or whatever it is, go do something that it excites you to do. And you could see yourself, either doing that job or owning a business that facilitates that job and doing that, and go get your hands dirty, go do it. Don't just chase it because you're making, this pays 15 over here, that pays 13 there, or whatever the wage is, whatever. I wouldn't do that. If there's no growth in it, if I'm not going to get anything, I'm not going to learn from it, I'm not going to go waste my time doing it. Because you're just changing your time for money, which that's what everybody does, change your time for money. Well, you can go change your time for money and a skill, acquire a skill.
At the same time.
At the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah. And that's what I did. Yeah. And I got skills through manufacturing. So in the building industry, I've built plenty of homes now. Yeah. Just everything that it's turned into. When we did the salon, I was the GC on that. So I remodeled the whole thing on that.
And but it looks beautiful.
And you turn it into, just those things, even on getting real estate. I mean, some of the homes that we got into real estate, I couldn't afford to go hire something to be done. I had to have those skills to go do it myself. Yeah. And so I had a lot of skills from the job that I was in. So that was great.
So you invest all this time, you invest all this money, all the energy into business, money, finances, growing the kingdom. How do you invest into your wife and family now that you are where you are? Or how did you invest during, because it sounds like it's a busy schedule. 46 years old, has all these things, all the real estate, businesses. How does one still invest into his wife and family? Yeah.
So where I'm at now, I've realized one thing along the way: you have to have really good people. And if you're going to have businesses and you're going to own businesses and do stuff, you need to have good people, and you need to pay people. You need to pay people, well for what they do. And the team that I have, that is, when people look and they see me, they don't see the whole team of people, what they do day in and day out. And we have a fantastic team of people. Yeah. So I would say invest in your people in that. And like I said, I don't want to do something with my business that's going to jeopardize my time with my family. And I feel like, early on in my 20s, trying to come up the chain and get established and buy different things, there were so many things that we didn't do as a family
Yeah.
We didn't do a lot of vacations, like the costly vacations.
Yeah.
I mean, we would still, my wife's parents had a condo in McCall, so we would use that, as much as we could in the summer.
Right.
And a lot of times she would go up with the kids in the summertime and use the condo. And I would come, Friday night after work, and I'd get to stay there for the weekend or whatever, because I couldn't leave work. So there was a lot of delayed gratification and stuff. There was always something. We always wanted the stuff. You always want different things. But I would say, if you can put those things on hold and delay that, those things will come. And the things, stuff, material things, they really, when you get things, I mean, they're pretty cool. Get a sports car, get something. It's like, it makes you feel good, right? But it goes away. Yeah. It doesn't last. The good things are, if you're going out and you're financing like a new sports car or whatever, I mean, it might feel good for like the first month, but then it's like, oh man, I got this payment, this thing sits in the garage. It's like, it's not worth it. It get to a point where you've delayed that gratification. Those things will come with time if you do it right. But now, we have a big high priority on spending time together as a family and taking vacations, and we do more of that now than I ever dreamed I'd do.
That's awesome.
So we really do try to make that a priority, and a lot of times too, even with as much as we do with non-family members, there's still, it's like, man, we're always doing this and that. You do have to make sure you're carving out time for your own kids and for your own family, and making sure there's a lot of time spent there as well.
And then in closing, I guess I have a few questions for you. What advice can you give to the audience that is going to help them in life when it comes to their pursuit with Jesus, their pursuit in family, marriage, all those things, and then in finances? Like what pointers do you have for those who are watching that aren't in the best position, that, are the story that I have $5 to my name right now? Like what advice do you give to those people in the season that they're currently in?
I would just say, the life is tough. Life throws everything at you, and especially when you start looking at it like what you were saying, man, I'm not a millionaire at 25. I'm not a millionaire at 30. I must be a loser. Or I'm not successful or whatever.
Right.
The world defines success as one way, but I think when you stay grounded and you're in the Word and you get up in the morning, and like, it's so easy to get up in the morning, and like even today, I got up this morning, and it's like, you look at a headline or whatever, and it's like, oh, stock future is down 250 points, with this banking fiasco going on, and everything can just come at you. But if you get in the morning and you start reading the Word, you start reading some Proverbs, reading some Psalms, it just encourages your spirit, and you just know that, what, all this stuff that gets thrown at you, whatever comes your way, whatever, it's irrelevant. You understand the big picture of things. Yeah. You understand that you're in God's hands. He has a plan for you. He's created you. He formed you before you were ever even born. He knows who you are. He knows what your destiny is. He knows your potential. And so if you get grounded and you know that, and your faith is strong, I don't think it matters what's happening around us. Because if you look around you, you're going to read of, wars and depressed, this is crashing, that's got, and you can just be stagnant and never do anything, because fear will just paralyze you. It will just prevent you from doing anything. But once you understand that, this is about God's kingdom, and He's called you to be, to be at a much greater place than what you can even imagine. I mean, He's got a big call on your life, right? But a lot of times we get stuck in this worldview of where we're at. We're stuck in our job. Yeah. Maybe we got a boss we don't like, or we got this, or there's relationship stuff happening at home. It's not going good, and you start dwelling on all these things, and then compound that with outside factors out of your control, and you can get weighed down on it. But if you can get your relationship with God first, and you have that the Word of God in you, and I just think there's nothing that you won't be able to walk through. I think that's the main thing. Just know who you are in Christ first, and if you know that, then just you're set.
Man, yeah, that's exactly it. I hope that you guys are hearing what Nate is saying, that you have a plan and a purpose over your entire life, that there's no reason to why you're in the situation you are right now that isn't for growth in the future, that's going to teach you something, that's going to encourage you in the future, that's going to take you from place to place, from glory to glory. So, man, I just want to say thank you for coming on the podcast today. It was super awesome to have you. I think that a lot of times people take mentors for granted, and what I'm trying to do is create a space where they feel they're in the same room we're in having this conversation. And yeah, man, I can't thank you enough for the wisdom you just shared to the audience and myself. I feel like I'm ready to go and get after it. I'm going to go buy some investment properties right now. But no, yeah,
get that
seriously.
20%.
Yeah, get the 20%. Don't pay PMI. But seriously, dude, like, thank you.
Sure.
I will never be, done with what you have to offer, and we're definitely going to have you back on in the future.
Sweet. Yeah. Well, great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And it's just fun to sit down and have these conversations, because, I was just so thankful in my life. I had people in my life that would pour into me. So, yeah.
I love it.
Let me know what I can do.
I love it. You got it right there, guys. That is Nate Argon, the real estate investor, the business owner, the entrepreneur, the dad first, the Jesus follower. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on this video, and we'll see you next time. Peace.